Welcome to the Institute for Excellence Excel training program. There are two levels of this program. Level 1 is an introduction to Excel, and then level 2 is more advanced Excel methods and techniques. In level 1, we'll break this down into shorter videos to cover Worksheet Basics, entering, editing, and formatting data, finding and replacing, sorting and filters, tables, charts, and finally printing. Level 2 will be a separate video that will include information on data tools, conditional formatting, pivot tables, and formulas. Worksheet Basics, important terms to know. The columns, as you see in the picture, are the verticals, which as you read across the top will read A, B, C, D, and so on. The rows, if you go down vertically, start at 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. If you want to take a moment now to open up an Excel spreadsheet, like I said, they're comprised of rows and columns. The cell is where you're going to be, the box that you're going to be typing into. So on a blank Excel page, type your first name in cell A1 and your last name into B1. Across the top menu, you'll see tabs running at the top of the program. Ribbons are located below the tabs. The options displayed on the ribbon vary depending on the selected tab. So for example, if you select Home, you will see the items that fall under Home. If you were to select Data, you would see the ribbons that are under Data. To minimize the ribbon, click the small button at the far right of the ribbon, and that will bump it up so that you don't get all of that extra information. If you want it to appear again, just click on any of the tabs and then the pin button at the far right of the ribbon. Other important functions to know about. If you look at the top menu, you'll see just above where it says File and Home and Insert, there is an arrow that points to the left and another one that curves and points to the right. Those are the undo and redo buttons. So let's say you were entering something and it was all a mistake, or you had taken out some formula that you didn't mean to take out. You could hit the undo button and it will take away the last step, the last thing that you did. Or the redo button will add the last thing back in, so you could keep going back and forth. Cut, copy, and paste. You could move cell values from one location to another. You could do what's called copy and paste. That'll keep the value in the original cell, but then put it in the new cell you selected. If you want to cut and paste, it will remove it from the original cell. It'll copy it from the original cell and move it to the new cell, but will be eliminated from its original site. Steps. While on the Home tab, you could click on the cell with the value you wish to copy or cut. Click Copy Cut button on the Home tab. Once you do this, the cell you selected will have a dashed green line around it. Click on the cell you want to move the text to. Shortcuts for doing this are Control-C, Control-X for cut. and Control V for paste. Okay, right now we have a worksheet open, and I'm highlighting right now column B, and now I'm highlighting row 2. When we enter data, we ask you, for example, to enter in A1 to put your first name, and in B1 to put your last name. So as you can see, I typed that data into the sheet. There's tabs and ribbons that go across the sheet. So here we have the menu across the top here, the tab, and the ribbons. So if I pull down on one of these, like for example font, and click down, I'll get more information on choosing a font. I have the shortcut for it up here in the box where I could select different fonts and sizes. So if that's too busy for you, where there's too much information, I could collapse the ribbon by going all the way over to the right, and there's an upside down V. If I click that, now it got rid of that ribbon, so now you only see File, Home, Insert, and so on. If I want that ribbon to come back in, I have to click on one of the tabs and click on the pin where it says pin the ribbon. So now it will remain back on the sheet. The undo and redo buttons I shared with you. For example, I typed in my name. If I hit the undo button, it takes it away. I hit undo again, it takes off the next cell. If I decided that I made a mistake and I want to put those back in, I hit the redo button twice, and then it will come back into play. Cut, copy, and paste. Again, if I want to take some cells and copy them, I could highlight the cells as I've done here, and then click copy, and then paste them at another location. So you can see how I copied and then pasted the cells. In the cells that I copied from, see how I have the dotted line that's around there? That means that that's still in play. In other words, I could paste that somewhere else again. You could also right mouse click and you'll see all your copy and paste functions coming up. So since the dotted lines are still around those two cells, I could continually paste them. And if I want to go back, I could use the undo button, or I could just cut all of these out to delete them. You could pause the video for a moment and go back to your spreadsheet where you typed in your name in column A and last name in column B in B1, and you could try copying those two cells and then pasting them somewhere else in your spreadsheet. If you want to add a cell instead of adding an entire row or column, you would click on the cell next to where you want to insert. So for example, as you can see on this sheet, we inserted a cell just, it's actually cell F4 on the sheet. And then what you're going to do is right mouse click and click Insert. Excel will add the same number of cells which you've selected. So if you selected 2 cells, then it would insert 2 more. In this case, we inserted 1. A new window pops up then to say, do you want the cells to shift to the right, to shift down? Do you want an entire row or entire column? So right now it's highlighted for shift cells down. So if you click that, if you click OK, then it will move all the cells beneath it down one. Now, if you want to delete that cell or cells, select the one you wish to remove, then right mouse click and select the delete option. So in this example, and you could work on the practice spreadsheet that we provided for you, you could insert one cell beneath A3 and B3 and then delete what you inserted. If you'd like to insert or delete columns and rows, either single or multiple, this is how to do it. So to insert additional rows or columns, click the letters or numbers of the corresponding rows or columns, so either the top of your spreadsheet or the left-hand side, the bar. Right mouse click and then click Insert. So the example here, if you select B and C from the top bar so that they're both highlighted, and then click right mouse click and then click Insert, it will add two columns. To delete the rows or columns, click the letters or numbers of the corresponding columns. So let's say those two that you just inserted, highlight them both, right mouse click, and then click Delete. If you want to hide or unhide rows and columns, this is similar to what we were doing with inserting or deleting columns. What you do is highlight the column or the row that you want to hide, and then click, right mouse click, and then select either hide or unhide. With hiding a column, it doesn't delete it. What it does is just makes it invisible so that it appears as if it's been deleted from the worksheet. Adding, deleting, and hiding worksheets. The same thing could be added on the bottom tab. If you look at the bottom of your spreadsheet where it says Sheet 1, there's a plus arrow that allows you to add more sheets. So adding sheets so that you have multiple spreadsheets within a workbook. If you hit that plus button, Excel will automatically open one worksheet, but you could add additional pages. You could also delete them. So if you right click on the worksheet tab at the bottom, you wish to delete, and then click the delete icon. You could also hide. For example, you might have a sheet that has formulas on it, and you really don't want the user to see it. You could have that worksheet still working in the background, but hide it by right mouse clicking on the worksheet tab and then hiding the entire worksheet. And you could also unhide a worksheet by doing the same thing. Naming and moving worksheets. To name a worksheet, right click on the tab you wish to modify and rename it. So again, all these worksheet tabs that are at the bottom of your workbook, where it says sheet number 1, sheet number 2, sheet number 3, and so on, you could rename them. Let's say you had information by the month. You could have the month of January, the month of February, and so on. To move a worksheet, to rearrange the order, simply click it and then drag it to the desired location. All you're doing is just shifting the pages around. Sometimes it makes a workbook look a little more attractive if you color code the worksheet names. And so to color code a worksheet, right click on the tab you wish to modify and click Tab Color. select the desired color, and if you want to remove it, just go back through the same steps, but click No Color. Copying or moving worksheets. If you want to copying will create a duplicate worksheet. Moving will relocate the worksheet to another Excel file. So to copy or move a worksheet, right-click on the Worksheet tab and then click Move or Copy button. A new window will appear. Select the appropriate worksheet that you're going to move to, and either select a new file to move it to or check the box to make a copy within the current file. So let's say you have a worksheet that you're working on, and now you want to repeat it so that you have multiple months or multiple years, but all the formulas and everything are going to be the same. You could use the copy function to do it within the same workbook, or you could use the move function to move it to a new workbook. Okay, let's talk a little bit about inserting and deleting cells. If you want to add only a cell instead of an entire row, just click on the cell where you want to add that space. So you could see I'm in column M, row 5. I clicked on 1120, and let's say I want to insert a cell there. I could right mouse click over that, go down to the insert function, and then it's going to ask me what I want to do. Do I want to shift the cells to the right? Do I want to shift the cells down? So right now the default is to shift the cells down. So if I do that, it moves everything beneath that cell down one cell. If I want to undo that, I could right mouse click and click delete, and then it'll ask me again, do I want to shift the cells up or to the left? So I'll click OK, and it brings me back to where I was. Likewise, if I wanted to do the same thing with rows or columns, I would just highlight them. So for example, let's say I wanted to insert 2 rows above the row that says Y&H Smilo Oncology. I highlighted those 2 rows. I will right mouse click, and now I'm going to say insert, and it inserted 2 rows above the 2 rows that I selected. If I want to delete them, again I highlight those 2 rows, right mouse click, and click delete, and that'll bring me back to where I was. You can see at the bottom here that the worksheets all have different names. You have Sheet 1, Sample Data 1, Table Example. These are all at the bottom of the sheet, and then Chart Example. If I wanted to add more, I could just click on the plus sign, and that will add another sheet, and another sheet, and another sheet, so that I could continue to add more worksheets to this entire workbook. Now if I want to delete a sheet, for example, let's say I want to delete sheet number 2, I highlight that, right mouse click it, and I could go up to delete. Sheet number 3, I could do the same thing, and maybe I want to rename it and call it something else. Okay, so I renamed it something else. I could hide a sheet. Like let's say there's formulas in a sheet that I really don't want for the viewer to see. Let's say with sheet number 1, I highlighted that one. I could right mouse click and hide the sheet. So now it looks like it disappeared. But then if I want it to come back again, all I have to do is right mouse click and click unhide. Then it asks me which sheet do I want to unhide. And I will say sheet number 1 because that's the one that I hid. Now I could go to a table like this here, to this worksheet, and let's say I wanted to hide rows or columns. Let's say I wanted to hide row 6 and 7. I could highlight both of those rows, right mouse click it, and then click on hide. So you'll see if you look at the row numbers, you still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it skips to 8, 9, 10, and there's like a little line that's there that indicates that there's something in there that's hidden. If I want to unhide it, I just select above and below it, and I will click unhide, and now that will reappear. I showed you at the bottom here how we renamed a worksheet. We call this one something else. We could also create color tabs for each of these sheets. So for example, if I want the sample data, I choose that sheet, so I clicked on that tab, right mouse click, and I could change the tab color. Let's say I want to change it to blue. And the table example tab, I want to change the color to green. And the chart example, I'm going to change that color to red. So now I've changed the tab colors. If you want to remove a tab color, again, let's say I don't like that red, I could click on that tab, go to tab color, and choose no color. And now that. The last thing that I wanted to show you was how to copy or move worksheets. So let's say I have a worksheet where I have data I want to use elsewhere. So let's say I choose table example here, and I want to copy or move this worksheet. Copying it will put it somewhere else in the workbook. Moving it would move it to a new workbook. So we'll try copy first. We're going to go up to that function. I right mouse click on the worksheet I want to copy. Go up to move and copy, and I click on it, and you can see it says to what book. Right now we're in this book called Basic and Advanced Excel Worksheet. So I could choose to put it before another sheet or move it to the end. So let's say I want to move it to the end. The last thing I have to do is create a copy because I want to copy it. So I click on create a copy, click OK, and now you can see that I have another tab that was added called Table Example 2, and it has the exact same data that I have in the original table example. If I wanted to move it to another worksheet, to another workbook, all I would do is go to that, and instead of trying to move it in this sheet, you would choose what book. Maybe it's a new book that you want to open up, it's a new year. You would click on new book and then say create a copy, and now I have a new book that opened up, book number 3. You can see up here I have book number 3, and I have that table, that worksheet called Table Example, that is copied into it. Entering, editing, and formatting data. From the Home tab, you can change the way your cells look. You could choose the font of the text, you could choose the size of the text, you could color the text, you could change the color of the cell. It's called the fill, the background of the cell, and also you could align the text. And I will show you examples of each of those. The cell styles. Um, so for example, in our sample data worksheet, sample data number 1, we have a table of year to date by unit falls that occurred. So we could click on the bad cell style to highlight the times where people fell, so that it would be a graphic, a visual for the viewer to be able to tell when falls occurred. There are lots of different format options for cells. On the Home tab, you could format cell values. You could format so that if you have dates in a column, you could format different types of dates. You could format numbers by percentage, by fraction, by currency, a number with a decimal. You could format a specific cell or an entire row or column. And to undo this, you would make the format general again. There's special formats also, and I'll show you examples of all these formats in just a moment. But you could set custom or special formats through the Home tab. So for example, if you're trying to type a zip code, Excel often removes a 0 because we don't write numbers like 06. That would just be 6. And so, but if you're trying to type in a zip code, you could choose the special format for zip codes, and the same thing for phone numbers, and I'll show you examples of those. Okay, if you want to remove formatting in any of these cases, all you need to do is choose the column or columns and then change the type back to general. So I'll show you an example of that on the sheet I was doing where we reformatted the zip code. The paste function is kind of an interesting one because you could paste a specific aspect of copy data. For example, do you want to copy and paste the formatting or just the value without the formatting? So you would use one of the following paste special options. So paste special options include normal, formulas. So if I wanted to copy the formula along with the number, if I wanted to copy the formula and the formatting, if I wanted to paste it with the source formatting, with where it came from, all of the formatting, if I wanted to paste without borders, if I wanted to paste the source column width, paste but transpose the data, paste the values. There's so many different ways that you could cut and paste. And I'll show you a few examples of that in just a moment. The Format Painter function I provided an example of, which will follow. We discussed transposition of data. This is a really good tool if you want to make columns rows and rows columns. Sometimes you'll see tables that you receive where they kind of look backwards from the way in which you'd like them to be read. So this is a really neat tool for being able to do that without having to re-enter all your data. Freezing panes will allow you to keep the titling across the top and the left-hand side, or just across the top or across the side, and we'll give you an example of that. And then modifying cell width and height is something you could use the auto format function. You could also do it manually, and we'll give you examples of both. Okay, so I'm going to show you a little bit of editing some cells. So for example, when we're looking at the cells where we typed our name, let's say I want to change the font color for my first name. So I could choose that cell, and then I could go up to the font colors, and here's the font color, and let's say I want to change it to blue. And then for my last name, I choose that cell, and I want to change it to green. Okay, so I know that's really simplifying things. Again, if I don't like that particular font, I could choose both cells and then maybe choose a different font. If I don't like that one, I could choose another, and so on. If I want to make the font larger, again, I could choose the cells and then choose a larger size font. And you can see now that it's overwritten the cells, and so I have to widen the boxes to be able to see them both. So we talked about changing the color to text. I could also change the color of the fill of the background. Right now the fill is blank, it's white. But if I choose both of my cells where my name is, and let's say I want to change the fill, it's that little paint can, it's called fill color. And let's say I want to make it yellow. Okay, now you could see I put yellow fill into those two boxes. You could do different colors fill for different cells, as I'm doing here. And the last thing is we could do an alignment of the cells. So for example, right now these two cells are left aligned, meaning that my name, you can see up that it's shifted to the left. Now if I choose those cells, and let's say I want to center them, I could click on center my content, or I could even right align it like that. Center or left. And I'm using the alignment tool to do that. Going on to our sample worksheet, and sample data sheet, the one that says sample data, or rather sheet number 1, these are the number of falls that occurred on a unit in 2018. So let's say I want to highlight the particular cells that are bad. I could choose those particular cells, like in February on Unit 1 there was a patient who fell. I could change that style to see how I have normal, bad, good, neutral. I could change it to bad. In fact, I could do that for all of the cells in which there were falls. I could even highlight multiple cells at the same time to do it. So that now the viewer is going to see that any of the cells, any of the times where someone fell, it's going to look bad on the sheet. It's going to pop up as being red, indicating that's bad. So these are visual formats or styles that we could create to make our sheet look even more compelling. So I'm going to show you a few examples now with cell formatting. So let's say I had, I'm going to open up a new sheet here and make it larger so you could view it. And let's say I wanted to have dates in this column. I'll call it date. And then let's say in the next column I'm going to have a number and then a %. So in the date column, I could choose that entire column, as I just did here, right mouse click, and go down to Format Cells. And this is going to allow me to align the cells, to do all sorts of things. But what I'm interested in is the number, is how it's going to be formatted. Is it general? Is it a number, currency, accounting? Is it a date? It's a date column. Okay, so I choose date, and then how do I want it to read? Do I want it to just have like the date 3/14/12? Do I want it with the day of the week? Do I want to do it with the month written out, and so on. I could even include with the date the time of entry. So let's just keep it simple here, and we'll choose a date like that. And now when I type in any dates, like if I put in today's date, that's how it's going to go in. And so on. Okay. Now if I type in some numbers, like let's say I type in 100, 50, 0.5. So these are numbers. And I could format those numbers. Again, I could go up to Format, choose Format Cells, and then, or I could have gone to Number over here. This is another way right here, is to choose, do I want that column to be general? Do I want it to be numbers? Do I want it to be currency? So right now it's numbers. Do I want accounting? Do I want a date, a short date, a long date, percentage, fraction, and so on? So let's say I choose number. It defaults to putting it to 2 decimal places. So if I want to change that, I could go in and change the format by saying decimal places 1 or none. If I want a comma in there, I could add the comma separator, use the thousandths comma separator. So if I put in a bigger number like 10,000, it puts the comma in for me. Likewise with percent, I choose that column, and I could format it as a percentage. How many decimal places do I want it to go to? So if I type in 50, 25, 10, okay? Now watch this here. I'm going to go into that column that I just created percents, and I'm going to change it back to numbers. So to general rather. Now it changes it back. We know that 50% is 0.5 or 25% is 0.25. So it changed it back to general. I'll put it back to percentage here. Oops, there we go. And right now it did it with no decimal places. But again, if I want to change that format, I could put it as many decimal places as I want. So you could play around with that a little bit with formatting. There's also special formatting. So like let's say we have an address column, and in it we have zip code and phone number. Okay, so if I try typing in my zip code right now, see I type it in as a general, and what happened? We lost the 0. All right, so let me try that again. I'll take that out, and I'm going to format this entire column with that special format. So we're going to use the custom or special. So here's special zip code. We could do the 5-digit or the zip code +4. We'll do the 5-digit one. Now that column is using that formatting. I'll type in 06791. There's my zip code, and now it goes in. Same thing will happen with phone numbers. So like if I put in a phone number, like, put in my phone number here, that, looks interesting, but it's not really clear. The formatting doesn't look clean like we would normally type a phone number. If I choose that same column and I say, let's format that using the special formatting, and I choose phone number, and now you see it with the parenthesis around the area code, and then the rest of the phone number with the dash. And you could even do Social Security numbers in the same way. So if I have my Social Security number 555443333, so I put that in there, and okay, that's interesting, but it's not clear. That's not how we would normally type a Social Security number. Again, I could choose the number formatting, special, Social Security number, and now it puts the dashes in. So it just makes it a little cleaner when you're working with numbers. So you could play around with the formatting a bit. For example, if I wanted to make these numbers into currency, suddenly I change this column to currency. Now I could highlight that, choose currency, and again, how many decimal places do I want to go to? And you'll see it puts a dollar sign there. If I chose accounting, the only difference with accounting is that let's try that again. So with the currency, I have the decimal places, I have negative numbers that would be in red. In accounting, I could choose the symbol, like if I wanted to use a pound sign, if I was in England, let's say, or if I didn't want to have any sign at all. And again, I could put my decimal places in, and there's your currency. So we'll come back here and looking at zip code, I want to show you if I wanted to remove formatting, I could choose that column and just go back to General, and now I lost the 0. If I go to Special, zip code, and now it puts it back on there. Okay, so on my sheet right now I have a currency column where it's formatted to be in dollars, and I have $42 typed in. Let's say I wanted to copy that, so I could click copy, and then I was going to paste it in another cell. So I right mouse click over that cell, and here are my options. I could paste it, it'll look like the original. This one that has the 1, 2, 3 only paste the value, so it doesn't take the formatting, the currency formatting with it. This one would bring the formula if there was a formula. This would transpose it. And so you see there's a whole bunch of other paste options. So right now, if I just click paste the value only, it moves the 42 over there without the currency. This is helpful when getting the sum of data, but you don't want to keep the individual data points. Or to get the sum, you would click paste values. The sum will stay even after the data points are deleted. Also use this to keep the results of a formula without keeping the formula itself in the cell. Here's a neat little feature called Format Painter that you see up here in the Home tab. So let's say I like the format of this particular cell, the one that has the currency format to it, and I want to use it in other places. I could click on that cell, click on Format Painter, and now see that cell, it's highlighted now like it's being copied. And I could put it over on this cell that is numeric, and as soon as I clicked on that cell, it formatted it to be currency also. So the Format Painter is kind of a neat tool to use. You could do the same thing with a whole row or a whole data set. Okay, here's a neat feature to take a look at. It's called Transposing Data. So let's say this entire worksheet that I have, where I have the departments listed going down on the left-hand side, and I have the dates going across the top. If I wanted to recreate that sheet with the transposing the columns and the rows, this is how you do it. So I would select all of the data range that I want to move. Okay, so here's the entire table. Okay, I selected that. Now I'm going to click copy, and then I'm going to go to a new sheet, and when I paste it, I'm going to go to paste what they call transposing. So it's right here, transpose T. And when I do that, now you see that all of the departments are listed across the top, and all of the dates are moved down in the left-hand column. So that's called transposition, and that's something that you might find useful sometimes when you're looking at data. So there's times where you could be looking at a worksheet and you see there's a header across the top, this one that says department, visit type, and it has months of the year. But the sheet is really long, and so as I go down it, now I lose that header. And is there a way that we could keep that header on top even as you're scrolling down the page? That's called freeze frame. So if I want to freeze frame the top row, so this is the top row right here, there is a way to do that. So if I go into the View tab right over here, View, there's a bunch of different options that are here, and one of them is called Freezing Panes. So if I click on that one, it gives me a few choices. Do I want to freeze the panes on the top and on the side, keeping the rows and the columns visible, or just the top row, or is it just the stuff that's on the side? In this case, I really just want the top row to be frozen, so I'm going to click that, freeze top row, and now if I go through the document, you'll see as I go down and keep going down, that row number 1 stays right there at the top no matter where I am in the sheet. Okay, let's say you had this table that looks like the one that I have up on the screen now, and you can see with the formatting that some of the text doesn't fit into the cell. So there's a few ways that you could modify that. One is you could automatically format the width of a cell if you double click the line at the end of this, at the right end of the cell. So see right up here, I'm between A and B. So if I click on that, it widened up that first column, so that column A is now formatted to fit all of the names that are in it. I could do the same thing for column B. I come up between the two columns, and now you could see that that longer last name fits in there. You could manually do this also. So in other words, I could just go to a column like how I double clicked on there, and I could just drag that over to see how it fits. There's also ways to format it if we use the format box. So let's say I choose the remainder of the columns. And you can see, like with phone number right now, I'm just getting the hashtag, which means that the phone number is too long to fit into that cell. So if I go up to the format box and I choose, I could choose the column width. That would manually set the column width. I could auto fit, which would basically, if I click on that, get all of them to then fit automatically. And with auto fit, if I do that to all the columns, where I say auto fit the column, the interesting thing now is I could type in, let's say I have a really long name, Joe, Bob, Billy, So now if I type that into that cell, you see that went over beyond it, so I could go back and auto fit again, and now that'll fit in there. You could also do the same thing for the height of the cells. Like let's say this first column, I wanted to appear a little more dramatic. I could choose row height, and that row height right now is a font of 15 3/4. I could change it to, let's say, 24, and now that makes the entire column appear to be bigger. An entire row, rather, appears to be bigger. Wrapping text is a great tool to automatically modify a cell width and height. So, for example, when I'm doing the surgical schedule for the McGivney Center, sometimes the surgery description is really, really long. And so I don't want that column to be really long, so I end up wrapping the text so that it just makes the cell look bigger, but it fits inside a column format. We'll show you an example of that in just a bit. This is a similar feature that exists in Microsoft Word and in other Microsoft tools where you could find and replace a value. So let's say I wanted to find and replace every time, every instance of thoracic, and I wanted to make it the background yellow. I'll show you an example of that where you find and replace a window, find the term thoracic, and then we could replace it with either a yellow background, or we could replace it with a different word. And I'll show you examples of each of those. Sorting data is a really cool function. Sometimes when you have tables of data, again, like when I pull up the schedule for McGivney, I do a custom sort because I want to sort by the date so that I have all of the surgeries gathered together that are grouped together by date. And then the next thing I do is I'll sort them by physician. So basically, you could take a table of data and then sort around several of the items that are at the top of the table, and then it will reorder that table using the rules that you give it. And again, I will show you an example of that. We could also filter data. So filtering data only applies to columns. So to filter data, you could choose any one cell and then click on Sort and Filter. And when you do that, basically, there'll be a small drop-down box that will be next to that column. So then anytime you click on that arrow, it will sort for that column. And I'll show you an example of filtering data. Okay, we'll talk a little about tables now. A table in Excel is a block of cells containing related data that have been formatted. It's easy, it makes it easy to carry out tasks when the table is formatted properly without affecting other data in a worksheet. So basically, to create a table, select the columns you wish to include. So if you know how many columns you're going to have in your table, on the Insert tab, you're going to click the Table button, and then once the table is inserted, it'll automatically include column filters. And then there's this Design tab that's going to open up, and I'll show you that in a moment. that will allow you to then create some fancy uh, features to your particular table. And this is fun to experiment with. I'll show you an example of that now. All Now we're going to just move on to charts. There's a lot of really cool things that we could do with charts. And so, you know, this looks like a Pac-Man, and it's an interesting pie graph. But I want to show you some things with charts. So we're just going to talk about different chart types first, and then we'll play with some data to create some basic charts. So we have line charts or run charts, and you could see at the bottom of the slide an example of a line chart. We have pie charts like the Pac-Man thing I showed you, which is good for numeric proportion, so like percentage of a whole. A bar chart is good for showing categorical data. So bars are typically horizontal. Column charts show categorical data, but the bars are vertical. So a bar chart is horizontal, a column chart is vertical. And then you could have stacked bar charts. These show comparisons between categories of data with the ability of breaking it down as part of the whole. So like if we had a listing of all patients and by year. So you might have one bar would be 2018, the next bar would be 2019 and 2020. And then within that bar, you might have different colors to represent different types of different areas that the patients fell into. Were they orthopedics? Were they neuro? And so on, so that you could categorize them by color. And then a scatter plot is used to show correlation between two variables plotted along two axes. And I'll try to show you examples of each. But before we go to some of the examples, let's talk about how to create a chart type, create a chart and a chart type. So to create a chart, you select the data you want to display. So I'll show you that in a moment, but you would highlight the data you want to display. And then on the Insert tab, select the chart type you would like. Or you could click Recommend Charts, and Excel will try to figure out, offer like different suggestions for types of charts that you might want to create. Then you modify the data in the chart. You could right-click on the chart and go to select the data. Let's say you were missing some of the data. By clicking Edit, you can label your axis data series and add. So you could add features to the chart to define it better. See, like where it says chart title, you could do all these things to create a title and describe what each axis is. You could even experiment with changing chart types just to play around with how a chart may look. And once you created a chart, you could change the type by right-clicking it and selecting Change Chart Type. So it's good sometimes to play around with this to get a feel for how your charts look, and I'll give you some examples of that in a moment. And then, as I said, you could manipulate the chart layout. So you could change the design of the chart, and there's a whole bunch of features for that. You could add chart elements such as titles, data labels, axis labels, trend lines. You could change colors. There's a lot of different features that you could play around with in terms of the chart layout. Okay, the last few areas that I'm going to go over in part one of this course is printing. And so there's, in order to get a form to print out properly, there's a lot of little tricks, including the page orientation. Do you want it to come out in a portrait format or landscape? How you set your margins, what you actually are printing, because sometimes you could have some pretty big sheets. How to choose a print area so that you're only printing the area that you want to print. And so the page orientation, you'll see on the page layout tab, you could set margins and you could choose the orientation. And then you also have that print area tab that I will show you how to use that feature. And then the last thing is sometimes how you could print titles in a document that you're printing from Excel. And so I'll show you how to do the print area. And then last, how to do titling in or print tiles in Excel, sometimes when you have some really big documents to print. And so you could see here in this example that the page order shows that it's going to go down and then over. If you have really big documents, sometimes you need to be able to do that. Or I'll show you how you could fit really large documents into one page. Okay, so here's an example of some real data that I downloaded regarding the McGivney schedule. And I've blacked out all of the patient names, but I do want to show you how I would format this data. So this is just a raw table that comes out, and you can see right now you can't even read the dates or the end times because the columns aren't wide enough for it. So the first thing I do is I'll choose the entire table. I'll go to Format, and then I'll say Auto Fit. So just make everything fit. So you see now the case numbers in there, the patient name fits into that column. The case procedures, those are really long. Some of the descriptions are really long. So I'll just choose that column alone, and I'll say format it, but let's make it only like a column of 60. So this way here it's not too huge. Now you could see that I'm back to being able to see all of my data. I got the case, I got the patient name, I got the case procedure, the location, the date, the service. What that means is the doctor ortho, plastics, podiatry, who do they belong to, what's the patient's age, what's the surgeon, and then the end time. So I'm going to eliminate a few of the columns because they're not really important to my sort. Like I don't really pay attention to case numbers, so I'm going to delete that column. The location for all of them is McGivney, so I'm going to delete that column. And the service, I know which service all the doctors are with, so I'll delete that column. So now all I'm interested in is trying to sort these patients by date and by surgeon and then by time. So how you do that is you could go to Sort and Filter. If I choose that and do a custom sort, you see my top row has the titles. So my data has headers. I click on that. So now if I sort, I could sort by lead surgeon. Okay, and if I click OK, now it's going to sort by doctor. So you can see Dr. Bernstein's first, Dr. Bloom, and so on. That isn't really what I want to do. So if I go back and I try to do a, to do a sort again, a custom sort, but this time I'm going to choose first by date. And then I'm going to add a level. So once you've sorted by date, the next thing I want to do is sort by surgeon. And then add another level so that I have the end times for each of the cases, so that it'll be sorted by date with the oldest, meaning the earliest date, to the latest date, and then by surgeons from A to Z, and then by date, by time, the earliest time to the latest time in a day. Now I click OK, And you could see that on May 12th, which is the next date that we have cases that are tentatively scheduled right now, I have two of Dr. Bernstein's cases. I have Dr. Donahue's cases, and they're all sorted right now by time. So that you have the first one that's coming out at 8:20, then at 8:52, then at 10:16 and 11:40. And that's essentially it. That's, using the sort data and the using that as a tool. Now, another interesting way of looking at this data, if I go back to where I was originally, that's good right there. So I didn't do my sorting yet. You can see that the dates are all, jumbled up here right now. Another thing you could do with columns in Excel is you could create a filter around one column. So let's say I choose that column and I go and I say filter. Now it puts a little arrow right up here, and so if I click on that, I could filter it. So I could select all. I could say how I want to filter it, oldest to newest, newest to oldest. I could choose just the ones that are in July, let's say. So if I click OK, now it's going to show me the one case that I have in July. I could click on that because you see now that filter thing shows that it's been filtered, that it's just the ones that equal July. I open that up, I could say, well, I want the ones in June also. So now I got the June and July. I click on that filter again and I could say from oldest to newest. And then it asks me, do I want to expand the selection to have them all or just with the current selection? So now with the current selection, you could see the ones in June going in order from June 2nd all the way up to July 2nd. And the last thing I want to show you is wrapping text. And this is kind of a cool feature because remember, we just shortened this column that said case procedures. We shortened it to a width of 60 just so that it could fit on the page. But now if I actually want to see those cells, to see what's in them, I could click on that whole column, and just for the heck of it, let's click on wrap text. What this says here is wrap extra long text into multiple lines so you can see it all. So click on that and poof, now you see with the procedures that are here that I could get the entire description, even though it makes the row height, kind of jumbled. But it's a way of fitting all of the text into a cell rather than making the cell really wide. So that's called wrap text. And the last thing I want to show you is just finding and replacing a value. Let's just say for the sake of argument here, and I'm going to get all of my cases back in here again. Let's say for the sake of argument that we have a doctor who changed there's a new doctor replacing them. So Dr. Rubin is going to be replaced with Dr. Smith. So I could find and replace every instance of Dr. Rubin and replace it with Dr. Smith. So if I go to the Home tab in Excel and I choose over here where it says Find, and there's a whole bunch of different options. I could find and replace. So I'm going to do replace. Click on that. And how it's formatted for Dr. Rubin is I'm going to type in Rubin, Lee, E, comma, and then yes, I have to put in all the information here. Let's make sure we have that all correct. Okay. Now I'm going to change it with Dr. Smith, Robert, and we'll make up a number for him. Okay.
So I could just say replace all, replace find all, find next. So let's just step through it. So this way here we don't screw this up too bad. But if I say find next, find all, okay. I'm wondering, find what here? Let's try. Find all. So now I found all the incidences of Lee Rubin, and I'm going to say replace all. So now if we go through, we could see that Robert Smith is now the surgeon in these, I believe there's 4 cases. So that's using the find and replace. And always remember you have the undo, so I could undo all of that mess and get Dr. Rubin back in on all the cases that he was scheduled for by using the undo button. If I liked what I had, I could do the redo button, and now Dr. Smith is back there. Okay, I'm going to show you how to create a table. So if I know my table is going to have so many columns here, I could select the number of columns and then say insert a table. Okay, so it says where's the data for your table, and so right now I don't have any table data right now. I could say my table has headers if I want to put headers across each of these. Click OK, and now you can see that each column, column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, has that little filter tool next to it. Now what happened also is that this table styles opened up over here, so that I have all these different styles of tables that I could choose. Some of them are really colorful. So let's say if I chose this one here, okay, it's colorful. And with each of my columns now I could put data in here, like I could put names. And I could put in ages. And so on. And then I could sort each of the columns. I could click on here and pull down to filter. I could sort. So like right now I have those 2 names are not in alphabetical order, so I could sort A to Z, and now it put them in alphabetical order. So you could see that it's showing all, but it's sorted alphabetically now. And so this is just a feature that you could use to create some really nice tables when you're using Excel. If you knew ahead of time what your column names would be, you could have formatted that. And then I'll give you an example of that here. Let's say I have a new table here, and I want to have date. I want to have MR. I want to have physician and diagnosis. Okay, so I could choose with date. I want to format that column because date is a special format. So I could choose format cells, and I am going to choose a date. And let's say I want to get really formal with this, and I want to have the date written out. The MR is the MR. The physician name, and the diagnosis we could come around to afterwards. Let's put a little bit of data in here. So we say April 10th, 20, and see how I put it in one way, and it actually put it in as writing it out April 10th. May 19th, 2020, May 19th. and so on. So we could put in a bunch of dates here just so we have stuff to sort by. Let's do something earlier. Oops, and now I got the hashtags, meaning that that needs to be made a little bit wider. So I'm going to use the auto fit feature, and you can see March fits in there now. I'll do my birthday, and so on. And then we'll make up a bunch of MRs. So we'll do MR 1, 2, 3, 4, MR 2, 3, 4, 5, and MR 9999, MR 7777, and so on. And then the physician, we could put in Smith, we could put in Jones, we could put in Rubin, we could put in, oh, there's so many to choose from. And we'll give another one to Rubin. And then diagnosis, and these I'll keep short, just total hip replacement, total knee replacement, total shoulder replacement, total knee replacement, and total hip replacement. Okay, so now that I have some data in there, I could go back now, now I want to create a table here still. Okay, so I got 4 columns. So I am going to insert a table. And so now it's created some formatting around that table. I could get fancy and choose different colors and stuff like that. So I chose a style. But now the neat thing here is that I could do sorts. I have, filters for each of these. Let's say I only want the cases that were in April. I could just choose that box and avoid all the others. I could sort them from oldest to newest, and so it does that. I could sort it by surgeon. So I'm going to sort A to Z. Now it does that. And so you can see how Rubin's 2 cases are in there together. So it's just a way of playing around with data and creating tables. And you see all of the formatting that I did. I have a header row. Maybe you'll have a table where you have a first column that's also, if I wanted to insert a column here, so that this first column is important to the formatting too. Like if you have an X and a Y kind of data, that would be a time where you would use the first column also. So that's just a little bit on tables, probably more than you like to hear, but it's okay. So we're going to actually play with some of the data that we have in our chart example of the spreadsheet that I provided for you to practice with. There is a listing of Smilo locations. There's 7 locations, and then on line 9 there's a goal. So you could see with each of the locations there is a number by month. So July 2017, Smilo Oncology, GI Oncology, 739, and then in August 815. So the goal is 900. So thinking about that, you'd want to create some sort of graph that would show if and when locations have exceeded the goal. So, there's a bunch of different ways we could express that. But let's choose our data. So in other words, I'm going to go to the table and I'm going to choose the cells that I want to include. So you can see how I chose from A1 all the way down to M9. So all of those are highlighted. Now I'm going to go to Insert, and I'm going to look at charts. So we could just pull down a whole bunch of charts. There's some recommended charts. So I got one here that it created a cluster chart used across a few categories. So use it when the order of the categories is not important, and that's true. But I like this chart, but I think I want to have like a trend line with it too to show not a trend line, but to show where the goal is, to show that as a separate line. Right now, goal is showing up as one of the columns. So that looks like it might work. Let's click OK. But now we could go in and we could edit this particular chart. So the chart elements. I could change the chart style, and I could do chart filters. So I could edit this chart. Okay, so now I have my chart up here. The one thing that I want to change is I want to get this goal and move it up to create a line showing that goal. So if I go up and I change the chart type, click on that, and basically this is what we call a clustered column chart that we're doing right now. You can see here that it's a clustered column. That's what it looks like. If I try doing something like a combo chart, let's see what that's going to look like. I'll click on that. Now with a combo chart, I could look at each of the data points and decide whether they're going to be clustered column or something else. The only one that I wanted to be something else was the goal. So let's take all these other ones and we'll change them back to clustered column. There we go. Clustered column. Clustered column. And the only one, the goal, I'm going to leave as a line. Now if we click OK, now you see something that looks more like what we discussed, and that is that we have this line that's going across that shows that 900 goal, and then you could see the columns that went above the 900 and the ones that were below it. So, that's maybe all you're looking to try to do with this particular chart is to say, okay, here we're creating a pretty good picture of that. So now let's go on and change some of the chart elements. We have axes for the chart. So the axes are primary horizontal, primary vertical. So the horizontal are the dates, the vertical are the numbers. See, if I take out vertical, then you just see a bunch of lines. So those numbers might be meaningful. I could put in axis titles if we needed to specify what is this axis, the number of patients per month. Same thing here if we wanted the axis title for the horizontal to say the date. I think it just busies up the chart and really doesn't help us in this case. The chart title, I could have a title or not. So right now the default is a chart title. So I could say go in here and we could type in Smilo patient, new patients by month. And that's a nice title there. Data labels, that gets really busy because what it's going to do is put the number on top of each of the columns. In some cases it's helpful to do that. Here it would make it look really busy. Let's do one feature right now just so that we have a better sense for what we're looking at here. Let's just expand the size of our chart right now so that as we're doing some of these edits you get a better sense. So see what I was talking about with data labels. If you make your chart bigger, now maybe having those numbers there could be meaningful. The data table, to have the entire data table underneath it by month might be a better way of doing it. You could have error bars, which basically give you your plus or minuses. Maybe you don't want the grid lines there. So you could choose to take the grid lines out or put them in. You have more options with grid lines also in terms of transparency and so on. There's a lot of features with this here, but we're going to keep the grid lines as they are. The legend, which is basically all the locations by color and everything, that's pretty cool as it is. But we could locate it differently. We could put it on the right. We could put it on the top. That might be more dramatic. And we have all sorts of options for where we want to put it. So I'll put it on top here just to change it around. And last, we have the trend line, if we want to put a trend line in. Now, we could look at different types of trend lines. So let's try a linear trend line. And, well, which location based on which series? So it's asking us, which one do you want to trend? So in this case, it might not be so meaningful to see a trend line because there's so many locations that you're looking to compare. But if you only had one or two locations, then you could put trend lines in that would give you a better sense for what's going on there. Other things that sit in the chart elements, the other things that we could do a chart style. So basically just by highlighting different ones, you could see how the styles change. Okay, and some of these get pretty cool. You want something that's going to look really beautiful on a slide or something. Maybe this is your chart style you want. And then the last thing you have are the filters, the values, the names. Is there everything on there that you want to include? Maybe you want to take out certain months. Maybe you only want the data for 2018 and we want to take out all the other ones. So we could say apply, and now you just see 2018. And that's it in terms of this particular type of graph, which is a column type chart. And we did a combo really because we included that goal line in the chart. Okay, now I'm on the table where we had our falls data for 2018 by unit. So, this is an interesting one. Again, if I choose that data, so if I select all of those data cells, and I go up and I say recommended charts. Now it's showing me some different charts. Here's a line chart. So it shows me January, February, March. Okay, that's interesting. It's just kind of jumping around all over the place. And I could see the units are different colors. But I'm interested both in the total number of falls as well as the fact that individual units, some do better than others. So looking, there's a clustered column, there's a stacked area. Here's one that I'm interested in. This is called stacked column. So what this shows is the number of falls by month, and you could see like in February you had a whole bunch of falls. You had a total of 7. So this stacked column is showing me the total in addition to showing me individually what they've done. So it's kind of a neat chart to take a look at. So we're going to say OK, and you can see there's certain months where there were no falls at all. April, June, July, November. Those are months to celebrate. And again, we could format this chart. We could go and format the chart title. We could change the style of it to make it look a little more interesting to the folks that are viewing it. But this is just another way of thinking about your data, where we had all these individual units, their data, but we also wanted to see the issue as a whole by month. And so this is a way of doing that. So here's a little tool from Microsoft where they are showing us some of the applications of other charts. When should you use a pie chart? When you need to show parts of a whole. So in this example of sales data from April 2019, you could see how the chart was broken down so that there were 4 different slices where sales was you were able to express the sales. So before you create that chart, you need to make sure your data is set up correctly. Create one column of categories. So here we have names, and we have the values, the amount that they've sold, in 2 different columns. Then you could select those columns and choose pie chart, and it would create that chart. Okay, so here's a real life example of creating a pie chart using fictitious data for new evaluations for the department for January 2020, and there's 4 therapist names and the number of new evals that they did. So if I choose, now I got the data right here, but I also put the title up here for the chart. So just play along with me. Choose the data in this way here, and then let's go and insert a chart, recommended charts, and we're going to go down to pie charts. Click on OK. Look at that. Now we have a pie chart that already has a title. It's called New Evals January 2020. And we have the 4 colors, and the therapists are at the bottom. So we could format this a little differently. Go to got the chart titles, the data labels. We could put the numbers inside. We could put them in the center, on the outside. Best fit, calling out the data. So see how we're putting the name there, and notice that it's converting it to a percentage. So it's called a data call out, and it changes it from the raw number to a percentage. So that's pretty cool. The legend, again, we have the names at the bottom, but if we use that call out thing, do we even need the legend? Or can we just use the call out as it is? So you know, that's a really simple but kind of a cool example of using a pie chart. Okay, not to belabor the point too much, but if I wanted to make this chart, this pie chart, look even a little more interesting, I could double click it, and then I'll see that I have some options across this top here. I have chart styles. I could change the chart type. So I could change it from a pie to a 3D pie, to a pie of a pie, to a bar of a pie, to a donut. So let me just go with a 3D pie just to see what that looks like. So we'll click on 3D pie, say OK. So right now you see that it's kind of twisted it just a little bit so that you see that it is 3-dimensional. Here's where I could then go to different chart styles. Like I could choose this chart style. That's interesting. Style number 1. Style number 2. See how I put the call out inside the chart. I like that a lot. Ooh, that's interesting too. So there's a bunch of different styles, and there's a ton of them. So if I go back, there was one I liked over here, this one here. So again, I don't think I need to have this legend on the side, so we could get rid of that. We just click on legend and it's gone. And now we got this really nice picture that shows new evaluations in our department for January 2020. And that's a pretty good use of a pie chart. Now let's say our department is a little bigger, and this is our data table where we have 12 therapists that are listed instead. So let's try and do the same thing. We'll create the pie chart. So I say insert, recommended charts, pie, say OK. Now you look at it and it looks pretty busy. There's a lot of little slices there and some bigger slices. So, we got to take a look and see how we could format this, and this might not even be the right kind of chart for it anymore. But again, if we choose the chart elements, and we go to data labels, okay, and we could get rid of the legend. With the data labels, let's go in and edit that. We'll choose more options because we used that data call out before and that was pretty good, but you can see here it even looks a little busy. So we could go to more options with that. And we see that we have a bunch of choices over here. Now we have values from the cells, okay? So, you could re-choose which values you want. The series name, the category name, which then puts the person's name next to the number that they have. And that number is the value. It's how many patients they saw. We liked it better when we had a percentage, so let's change it to a percentage to show what percentage each person did of the overall. But this chart still looks like it's really, really busy. So I don't know that it's going to be the best kind of chart to use for this data. So let's go and change chart type. And this might be an instance where we could use something else, maybe a column. So let's see what this column one would look like. So this one here has 12 colorful columns, and it says new evals 2020. And we see we need to do a little bit of formatting for it. We need to know who's who. So our legend, let's put that in for now so that we know who's who. And we could decide where we want to put that legend. So right now I'll put it on the bottom. But also we had the data labels. We could do more options with this here and choose what we're going to use. Now with this chart, it's interesting that the title is messing us up here. So let's go back and just select the data all over again. So if we go in here and we say, let's choose the data we want. We don't want this category there. So let's just select data. So we're going to go back here and just choose the raw data like that. Say OK. And now okay, now I've got it back on track. So I chose a column chart instead of a pie chart. And with the column chart, you could see here that you have all the individual names, the number of patients that they've seen, and you have a chart title on the top. So now we could go in and do some editing here. The axis, we could get rid of the vertical axis if we don't need it, or maybe we want the number of patients there. Axis titles, do we need to have an axis title? I don't think so. The data labels, and this is where with the data, that'd be interesting to put the number, but do we want, that's where we could do more options, and instead, we might look at putting, the number on there looks pretty good. And let's see what else we have here. We have the grid lines, we have a legend. So the legend is just, right now we see on the horizontal axis, we have them listed by name. The legend, we would just tell us, in this case, series, so we really don't need legend. And that's really about it. We could put in a chart title and we could say new evals by therapist for January 2020. And we have a usable chart right here. Okay, the last thing we're going to touch on is going to be printing. And printing is a little tricky sometimes in Excel. There's a few things we need to look at when we're trying to print. One is going to be like, you look at a table like this one that we have in front of us here right now, and it's quite large. I mean, it'll go down here for a few pages, and you see, if I look at these dotted lines, these tell me how many pages it'll print on. So right now, if I just went to print and I said, okay, let's print, you'll see a preview coming up right here. And this preview is telling me that it's going to take 6 pages to print. And this is what it's going to look like. All right? So if I could live with that, that's great. But you notice like there's one column that shows up on pages 5 and 6. So let's go back and just take a look at this here. We have a few options of things we could do. We could go to page layout. Right now the page layout, the default when we went to print, is what they call portrait. That's the way pages usually print out. If we wanted something that would be wide, we could do a landscape. So if I choose landscape as my print orientation, now let's go back and take a look. Click print, and again you'll see a preview, and this time it says it's still going to print 6 pages. Now the problem is that there's just so many rows that almost all the columns can fit. Half the columns fit on the first 3 pages, and then the rest of them fit on the next 3 pages. So that's not really going to help me either. We have orientation. We could also play with the margins. So if I go back to the first orientation with the portrait, and I say, all right, let's see what our margins are. The margins right now are top is 3/4 of an inch, bottom is 3/4 of an inch, left and right is 0.7. Maybe if I play with that a little bit, maybe if I play with the left and right to make it a little tighter, like this setting right here where it says narrow, maybe I'll be able to reduce the number of pages. So I clicked on narrow for the margins, but you could also go in and customize the margins, so you could choose what each margin is going to be. And you could even from here go to print preview to see, okay, what's that going to look like now? Now I'm down to, you notice it says 1 out of 4 pages. So I see across the top, it gets up to November 17, and then there's a second page, and then there's a third page, and then there's the 4th page. But at least now that last column is fitting on the 3rd and 4th page. Okay, let's go back to our document again. One of the other things that we could do is, right now it's assuming you want to print everything that's on this worksheet. Let's say I only want to print the 2017 figures. So I want to print columns A through H, but I don't want to print I through N. So if I highlight just those, I go A through H, and I go all the way down to the bottom. So you see how I have all of those highlighted now. Now I could go to an area called Print Area. On the Print Layout tab, there's a thing called Print Area. This function allows you to print only a specific area of a worksheet. To utilize this function, you need to select the cells, like we just did, that you'd like to print, and then click Print Area. And then see where it says Set Print Area? Now, I've set my print area to just be that. So now if I go back and I say print, and it says here print, it's still 1 to 4 pages. It says print active sheets. If I change it to say print selection only, I'm sorry. Okay, so now we're going to go to print, and if we take a look at it this time, it's still 4 pages, but if we scroll through it, you'll see that there's only that one column for December 17. In other words, it's printing the selection, just the print area that we chose, but it's still just a little bit too much for it to fit on 2 pages. So there's other things that we could do. One of the things you could do is what's called scaling. In other words, we could make the entire print just a little bit smaller. In scaling, in custom scaling, there's a bunch of options. It says no scaling. In other words, just keep it as it is. Fit the entire sheet to 1 page. Fit all the columns to 1 page so that in the printout it'll be 1 page wide. In this case, it would bring the December 17 column over to page 1. Or we could fit all the rows in 1 page, which would really scrunch it down. So let's take a look at each just to see what would happen. So if we fit all rows to 1 page, like I said, see, now it fit all of the rows into 1 page, but it made it really, really small. So we don't like that. How about if we fit the entire sheet to 1 page? Again, the same thing happens here of it made all the columns, because there's a lot more rows than there are columns. It made the columns really, really small. How about if we did all columns on 1 page? Now in doing that, it brought December 17 over. It's still 2 pages long because there's a lot of rows, but this seems like the best compromise of all of the choices. So while we're still here, we could take a look at a few of the other options we have in print tiles. So in other words, if I, on the page layout tab, you'll find print tiles. So here we are with the print tiles. This is, if I click on page setup, you'll see it. I fit 1 page to 2 tall. My margins are what they are. And here's where I could set things like headers. I could put a title on the top of the thing. So I could put a header in here either in the left, on the center, or on the right. So let's say I want to put a header in here, and I want to say that this is Smilo new and return by month. Okay, and maybe on the bottom I want to put down like when the report was prepared. So I could do on the left hand side, I could say insert date. So I could put in here printed, and then what the date was that it was printed. So now if you take a look at that, you'll see on the report, if I click OK, Smilo new and return, and then on the bottom I have printed and I have the date. So that's in page setup. There's a bunch of other things you could do here. Like I said, you could adjust the margins. We did the header and the footer. And then with the sheet, you could choose how you want to print it. In this case, it's only 2 pages. But if it were 4 pages long like we had originally, or 6 pages long, do you want to print down and then over, or do you want to print over and then down? And so those are some choices that you have as these documents get bigger and bigger. But before you print anything, make sure you take a look to see what it looks like in your print preview so that you're not wasting a lot of paper.